Hi, I'm Dr. Altaf, and today I want to ask you something that might seem a little uncomfortable at first. When was the last time you felt genuinely sharp? Not just functional, not just getting through the day, but actually quick, focused, and mentally clear in the way you remember feeling years ago? If it's been a while, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not stuck. Because what the latest neuroscience is showing us is genuinely exciting. The brain you have today is not the brain you're locked into forever. Your brain is not a fixed, slowly decaying machine. It's a dynamic, living system that responds to the signals you give it every single day. We used to think cognitive decline was just the price of getting older. That memory loss, mental fog, slower processing, these were inevitable. But the science has quietly, steadily turned that assumption on its head. And today, I want to walk you through 4 of the most evidence-backed strategies for actually strengthening your brain. Not just maintaining it, but genuinely improving how it works. We're going to start with the simplest changes, things you can begin today with very little effort. And we'll build toward the most powerful intervention on this list, which by the end of the video, I think is going to surprise you in the best possible way. Let's begin. The first strategy is one I'll admit I underestimated for a long time, and I think most physicians my age would say the same. For years, the standard view in medicine was that multivitamins were largely unnecessary for otherwise healthy adults eating a reasonably balanced diet. We used to joke that they gave you expensive urine. And honestly, that cynicism wasn't entirely wrong. But the picture has gotten more nuanced, particularly when it comes to cognitive aging. There's a large randomized controlled trial called the Cosmos Web Study. It involved over 3,500 older adults who were randomly assigned to take either a daily multivitamin or a placebo pill for 3 years. And the results genuinely shifted how I think about this. The multivitamin group consistently performed better on memory assessments, particularly on tests of immediate recall. When researchers compared these scores against typical age-related decline curves, they estimated the multivitamin group showed what appeared to be roughly 3 years of preserved memory function relative to the placebo group. That's a meaningful finding, and it's held up across follow-up analyses. Now, I want to be honest with you about the limitations here, because that's how good medicine works. The multivitamin used in this study was a specific brand, Centrum Silver. And while the trial was conducted by independent researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital and Columbia University, the manufacturer did provide some grant support and donated the study tablets. That's a standard arrangement in nutrition research, and the design and analysis were independent. But it's worth noting, there's also the important caveat that this is one major trial, not a decades-long consensus. We don't fully understand the mechanism, whether it's filling small micronutrient gaps that are common in older adults or something else entirely. What we can say is that the data is more encouraging than most physicians expected, and that closing small nutritional gaps as we age appears to matter more than we previously thought. If you're in your 50s, 60s, or beyond, and you're not already taking a good quality multivitamin, this is worth discussing with your doctor. It doesn't have to be the specific brand from the study. The principle is about micronutrient adequacy, not any one product. The second area I want to talk about is a nutrient that most people don't think about, and most people aren't getting enough of. It's called choline. Your brain uses choline in 2 particularly important ways. First, it's a raw material for acetylcholine, one of the primary neurotransmitters involved in attention, learning, and memory. When you're trying to focus, when you're trying to hold on to new information, acetylcholine is a central part of that process. Second, choline plays a structural role. It's a key building block of phosphatidylcholine, a major component of your cell membranes, including the outer layer of your neurons. Keeping those membranes healthy matters for how efficiently signals travel between brain cells. The good news is that getting adequate choline doesn't require supplements for most people. The simplest source is eggs. 1 to 2 eggs per day gives you a substantial portion of your daily choline needs. If you don't eat eggs, you can get meaningful amounts from salmon, cod, tuna, beef, chicken, and soybeans. The research supporting dietary choline for brain health comes from different types of studies, which I think is important to understand. A randomized controlled trial in Japanese adults found that consuming approximately 300 milligrams of egg yolk choline per day for 12 weeks, that's roughly 2 large eggs daily, significantly improved verbal memory scores compared to a placebo group. That's a rigorous controlled design. There's also a large observational study from Finland, around 2,500 men followed over more than 2 decades, that found higher dietary phosphatidylcholine intake was associated with a meaningfully lower risk of dementia over the follow-up period. Observational studies like this can't tell us that choline caused the difference. There are too many other variables at play, but when a finding this consistent shows up across randomized trials and long-term observational data, it strengthens the case that adequate choline intake matters. If your diet is low in the foods I mentioned, it's worth having a conversation with your physician about whether your choline intake is adequate. Now, if you've spent any time exploring longevity and brain health research, you've probably heard that blueberries come up repeatedly. And there's a real reason for that. Not marketing, not food industry funding, but a fairly consistent body of research across multiple study designs. Blueberries are rich in compounds called anthocyanins. These are the pigments that give them that deep blue-purple color. Anthocyanins appear to support nitric oxide production in blood vessels, which helps those vessels relax and improves blood flow. For the brain, which is one of the most metabolically demanding organs in your body, better blood flow means better oxygen delivery and better clearance of metabolic waste. There was a double-blind, randomized controlled trial in older adults where participants consumed freeze-dried wild blueberry powder daily for 12 weeks. The blueberry group showed measurable improvements in immediate recall and on cognitive switching tasks, the kind of mental flexibility that tends to decline with age. And a systematic review and meta-analysis that pooled the results of 9 randomized controlled trials, over 500 participants total, found that blueberry consumption produced statistically significant improvements in memory, particularly in individuals who were already showing signs of mild cognitive impairment. I want to be precise about that last finding. The strongest evidence for blueberries is in populations that already have some cognitive vulnerability. The evidence for pure prevention in cognitively healthy adults is more preliminary. But given the overall safety profile and the broader cardiovascular and metabolic benefits these compounds appear to offer, I think adding a cup of blueberries to your daily routine is a genuinely reasonable evidence-based choice. Frozen blueberries retain their anthocyanin content well. You don't need to buy fresh. And if you prefer a more concentrated option, freeze-dried blueberry powder is what several of the trials actually used. Now I want to tell you about the intervention that sits at the top of this entire list, not just in my view, but in the research evidence itself. It's aerobic exercise. I know. You might be thinking, I've heard this before. But I want to show you exactly what the data says, because it's more striking than most people realize. There's a landmark study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, a randomized controlled trial where older adults were assigned to either regular aerobic exercise or a stretching and toning control group for 1 year. The aerobic group simply walked on a treadmill for 40 to 45 minutes, 3 times a week at a moderate intensity, roughly 60 to 75% of their maximum heart rate. At the end of the year, brain imaging of the aerobic exercise group showed a 2% increase in hippocampal volume. That might sound like a small number, but consider this. The hippocampus, the region most directly involved in forming new memories and spatial navigation, normally shrinks by approximately 1 to 2% per year as we age. A 2% increase effectively reversed a full year and potentially 2 years of age-related hippocampal loss. The study also found that aerobic exercise significantly increased circulating levels of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF is a protein that supports the survival, growth, and maintenance of neurons. It's sometimes described as a kind of fertilizer for your brain cells. When BDNF levels are higher, your brain is better positioned to form new connections, repair existing ones, and maintain the neuroplasticity that keeps cognition sharp. What makes aerobic exercise so uniquely powerful is that it doesn't just address one pathway. It affects multiple systems simultaneously. It improves cerebrovascular blood flow. It reduces inflammation. It elevates BDNF. It reduces cortisol over time, which matters because chronic stress is one of the most damaging things for hippocampal tissue. No single food, supplement, or dietary change produces all of those effects together. And the dose from this particular study, 45 minutes 3 times a week, is genuinely achievable for most people. You don't need to run a marathon or join a high-intensity class. Walking briskly, cycling, swimming, rowing, using an elliptical, any sustained aerobic activity that elevates your heart rate into that moderate zone counts. If you have any existing heart or joint conditions, please do speak with your doctor before significantly changing your exercise intensity. That's not a throwaway disclaimer. It's genuinely important to get cleared and get a sensible starting point tailored to your situation. So let's bring this all together, because I want you to leave this video with something you can actually use. Think of these 4 strategies as working at different levels of depth. A quality daily multivitamin is the simplest layer. It costs very little, requires no effort, and the Cosmos Web data suggests it may be doing more than we previously thought for memory in older adults. Getting adequate choline through eggs or other dietary sources adds a second layer, supporting both neurotransmitter production and the structural integrity of your neurons. Adding blueberries, or a blueberry powder, to your daily routine adds a third layer. Anthocyanins supporting vascular health and brain blood flow. And aerobic exercise, done consistently 3 times a week, is the foundation that makes everything else work better, because it changes the structure and chemistry of your brain in ways that nothing else can replicate. None of these require dramatic life overhauls. Most of them are incremental adjustments that compound over months and years. And that compounding is exactly how brain health works. It's not about a single magic intervention. It's about giving your brain the consistent signals it needs to maintain and rebuild itself. Your brain is listening to everything you do. Every walk, every meal, every night of sleep, it's responding and adapting. The question is just what signals you're choosing to send. If this kind of evidence-based, honest health education is what you're looking for, I'd love for you to join this community. Hit subscribe and you'll be part of a channel that's committed to giving you real information. Not hype, not fear, not miracle claims. Just the best that current science has to offer, explained as clearly as I can. I'm Dr. Altaf. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.